There have been shots fired at the U.S.-Mexico border. It's no surprise to anyone that Donald Trump's signature policy was sending the illegal immigrants back to their countries of origin, and it seems that there are people that are taking issue with it, whether it be the cartels in Mexico or Colombia. But we've got all that tonight. We're going to start by talking about the gunfights at the border. The U.S. Border Patrol is exchanging gunfire with the Mexican cartels. This is something that I think every American should care about, because these are things that actually can spill over into the rest of the United States, because cartels and organized crime, that kind of stuff actually will seep into the rest of the country if we're not careful. Colombia got into a beef with the United States because we were sending Colombian illegal migrants back to Colombia, and the Colombian president was not going to receive the planes, and that lasted for like 10 hours because the United States just flexed a little bit of economic power over them, which is a little soft power, which is something that the United States should be doing. But to see that kind of behavior work so well and so quickly speaks about the previous administration. We're going to talk about that. J.D. Vance got into a wonderfully heated debate with, who's that, Margaret Brennan over the weekend, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Andy Ngo was reporting about the trans German person that killed a Vermont Border Patrol officer. So we're going to talk about that. Selena Gomez was crying and had to delete some Instagram story because of it. Nick Sorta was talking about Donald Trump has mentioned again at the, I guess, a GOP. Andy Ngo was reporting. Donald Trump was talking about getting rid of the income tax again, so we're going to talk about that. And we've got something about Nicole Wallace crying, and Google Maps is going to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. But before we get into that, go on over to castbrew.com and buy some coffee. Tonight, we got Ian here. Ian, how many bags of Graphene Dream have you sold?
Oh, all told, probably like 6,000, 5,000. I think there's like 100 left as of yesterday or something. I checked 140 left, maybe.
If you want that,
click on it, it'll tell you how many there are available. 137?
Good grief.
Get them. They're going to go out of stock soon.
Go grab some Ian's Graphene Dream. You can go get some, what else do we got? The Appalachian Nights, which is actually my personal favorite. That's the one that I drink normally. The Rise with Roberto Jr. is back in stock. What else do we have?
We've got Phil's Holiday Blend. Is it still available?
I mean,
sell yourself,
still
baby.
There.
Look at that. Look at that outfit.
Yeah, I think that I think it captured my holiday spirit nicely. If you want to head on over to Boonies HQ, you can buy skate decks, the new 28th Amendment skate deck that Tim has put out. It reads, the 28th Amendment, chickens being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep, bear, and breed chickens shall not be infringed. Everyone has the right to grow their own food. And if you go to the boonieshq.com, you can pick up a skateboard that will affirm that right and remind you that you have the right to direct your own life. And then you can head on over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, join the Discord. You'll be invited to the after show, officially cordially invited to the after show, where you can call in and talk to us, ask questions, talk to our guest, talk to Ian, ask him what he's been doing, if he's been changing the weather, and if the snow that you're dealing with is Ian's fault or not. But yeah, so why don't we go ahead and get started tonight? We've got Josh Seiter here. How you doing, Josh? Good to see you.
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Who are you and what do you do?
I am an internet troll and provocateur. And so I just talk about a lot of things, including gender ideology and a lot of other stuff. So,
all right. Well, thank you for coming to hang out. Libby's here.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm with the Post Millennial. Glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back, man. Wish it could be under better circumstances. Tim, wish you the best. Tim's out with a dental surgery, healing up as we speak. Tim Pool, the man. Phil, thank you for hosting tonight.
Thank you.
Good to meet you finally, Josh. We also have Serge on the buttons. He's not going to introduce himself.
He doesn't like to talk at all.
But I'm Ian Crossland. Very happy to be here. Check me out on YouTube at Ian Crossland. I just posted a video a couple days ago about that we are in a golden age right now. It's an interesting time to be alive. Our production capacity is enhancing as we speak. But let's get down to the stories.
All right. Don't forget, smash the like button, share the show with your friends, and let's get right into it. U.S. Border Patrol agents exchange gunfire with Mexico drug cartels. This actual video here, this was taken a few days ago. This is a U.S. citizen that was shot by the cartels. And if I understand correctly, he was just hiking and just caught a stray. I don't know if they were shooting at him or if they were just being buck wild and shooting. But Newsweek reports U.S. Border Patrol agents near Fronton, Texas, reportedly exchanged gunfire at the southern border with suspected drug cartel gunmen from Mexico. There were no injuries in the incident near Fronton Island, an uninhabited island in the Rio Grande in Starr County, Texas, according to reports. The island is a disputed territory about which Texas and Mexico have made conflicting ownership claims. Newsweek reached out to U.S. Customs, the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Border Patrol, and the Texas Department of Public Safety via email for comment. News Nation's Allie Bradley reported that while the suspected cartel has fired shots from the Mexican side of the territory for years, things in the area have escalated in unprecedented ways since President Donald Trump was elected, even giving orders to shoot at agents recently. So if they're receiving orders from the cartels, which ostensibly the guys that are, the foot soldiers or what have you, they're the guys that they are taking orders from the higher ups. If the higher ups are actually giving orders to shoot at American, Border Patrol and likely in the future, American soldiers and Marines, what does that say about the U.S. posture towards the cartels? They've been designated terrorists. Do they have to start worrying about, airstrikes? Because honestly, it's not like Mexico can stop us.
Well, it's interesting. It shows how silly the whole situation is, especially what the left is saying, that everyone coming here is just, innocent and that there's nothing we should be afraid of. But at the same time, they're tacitly admitting that it's very dangerous there. There's violent people there, but we're supposed to believe that everyone flooding into America are going to be model citizens and are completely innocent. And I think it just shows the type of people that are there on the other side of the border, and it justifies why Trump has taken the stance he has taken, which is we don't know who these people are that are flooding into our country from this dangerous country, and we should get rid of them. And so I think it just proves that what Trump's doing is the right thing, and that the people coming over aren't a bunch of innocent model citizens.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. And that's something that I think a lot of the Democrats are pressing, is that there's this idea that the people who are crossing the border are all innocents, right? They're all just people seeking a better life. And I think that is so, that's so poorly thought out, because these are people also that are paying human smugglers, the cartels to bring people across. And they're coming from all over the world with nefarious purposes. There were already people coming across with terrorist plots. J.D. Vance was talking about that yesterday on CBS. There was somebody who was trying to do a terror attack in Oklahoma. So I think that we've seen that it makes a lot of sense for Trump to refer to the cartels as terrorists. And the terrorist cartels think of themselves that way too. The gang, what is it? The Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. They have an open policy that you can, if you're part of that gang, you can go ahead and shoot law enforcement. That's part of it. That's part of what they're doing.
And to think that they're not also sending some of their cartel members in as just migrants, to think that they wouldn't do that is beyond naive. Of course they are. We had an open border policy. You better bet they're sending tons of people over into our country.
I've talked to some people on Twitter about this, or on X about this, and I've essentially floated the idea that the United States has spent the past 20 years dealing with terrorist organizations like this. Now, the U.S. is exceedingly good at dismantling terrorist organizations like this. When it comes to the action of dismantling. The politics aside, right? You talk about what happened in Afghanistan after the Taliban was expelled. And then you're like, okay, well, there were problems afterwards. And then you talk about what happened in Iraq after the Iraqi government was taken apart. And then they, basically subdued Iraq to a large degree. But then the politics got involved and the rules of engagement became a problem. The United States can, and also what the United States did to ISIS, the Islamic State, completely annihilated, like took them out almost entirely. But when the U.S. leaves, then you have a power vacuum. Then these organizations can come back. But with a situation where the U.S. isn't going anywhere, it's not like the U.S. is going to go back. Like if the U.S. were to begin operations in Mexico and work with the Mexican government to actually rout out the cartels, it's not like the U.S. is going to leave. The United States is still right there. If they're sending people over the border, the U.S. is not going anywhere. So the idea that the U.S. could leave and essentially fumble the ball on the peace is what usually is how it's characterized. That's not really an option this time. And so the thing that people bring up is, well, we're going to see terrorist attacks by the cartels in the U.S. And while that's totally possible, it's not like that wasn't a possibility when you were dealing with other terrorist organizations. I mean, the whole war on terror started because 3,000 people died on 9/11. Like that's what set the whole thing off, an actual terror attack in the U.S. And there were a handful of attempts, and some that were actually successful. The Pulse nightclub comes to mind. And then most of them were random, individuals like lone wolf stuff. Do you guys think that the United States, first of all, should actually get into that kind of action with the cartels? Because if you think of it, like 100,000 people a year or something like that die of fentanyl, and there's probably 1 million people in some kind of being trafficked somehow over the border. 500,000 of them are kids, that are being raped multiple times a day. Is this something that the U.S. should actually start to do, to start to work with the Mexican government, try to get them to actually clean up their government because they're all in bed with the cartels, and actually start taking out the upper echelon of the cartels?
I think they definitely should, but it's silly to do anything in another country if you're not going to protect your own border and prevent them from coming over here. Why are we sending soldiers to other countries to fight and die if we are just going to allow them to come into our country carte blanche with zero repercussions? Why are our soldiers fighting anywhere if we're just going to leave our border open? So first, we need to secure our border. And then, yeah, Phil, I think absolutely if we have to send them over into Mexico to do some kind of operations, then do that too. But we need to do both.
Do you think that the Trump administration is going to put the effort in to do what it wasn't capable of doing? I think that there's a mandate from the American people, right? The American people are significantly aware. Like there's a general awareness that there's at least 10 million, probably 20 million illegal immigrants that have come over the border, and that the border is a real problem. Do you think that the Trump administration is going to do this?
They already did in his first week last week. They sent 10,000 troops with military-grade weapons and airplanes and helicopters over to the border. So that right there says, yes, he's going to do something. And that we're only 7 days into his presidency.
Yeah.
Have they sent artillery down there yet?
Well, I don't know that artillery is actually the right piece of equipment. If you do need something because artillery is really... Artillery generally tends to be like area denial, so you'll shoot you'll shoot artillery rounds, and those will explode over an area meant to take out large groups of infantry. It would be more likely that they would have drones, AC-130s, and that kind of something that's more precise than artillery, because artillery takes out large areas.
Yeah, like with this gunfire, if a foreign country is firing across our border at American citizens, that might go on for a little while until the artillery strikes begin, or until it's just like take the area out, level it. I mean, I can see this thing escalating really, really fast, and the rest of the world, people that don't like the United States, getting involved through the Mexican side, it becoming an all-out war on our border. 30 miles, 180 miles away from the border is just no man's land. Like, I would not want to be living near the border right now if this thing is looking like a war is about to open up on our southern border. We haven't had a border war since 1812, I think.
I think that's right.
Before the age of like artillery, really, it was like cannons and stuff. Now we've got like, I don't know how long range these artillery are. You could probably shoot 1,000 miles with these stupid rockets.
No, artillery, if you're talking about guns, if you're talking about artillery, they top out around 20, 30 miles, if I understand.
And then you got like rocket artillery.
Rockets are different, and missiles and cruise missiles and stuff like that.
I feel the fervor of 9/11 right now, where people are like, go get the terrorists, go get them, but it's on the border. It's not like it's over there where the collateral damage that we create is actually to our benefit. It's, I don't know, man.
I don't know that collateral damage was to our benefit. I feel like collateral damage is generally to our detriment because nobody wants to see
this might be the first war against terror that is actually beneficial domestically.
Yeah.
You know, because we would be preventing massive gangs from coming in and destroying, you know, the U.S. population with fentanyl and other drugs, from bringing children across who really shouldn't be anywhere near this situation, from all of the rapes, all of this stuff, all of the extortion. And there's lots of reports too of people, once they get to the U.S., being forced to pay back the money that they gave, that the cartels spent to get them across the border. And that's how they're pressed into domestic servitude, which is a big problem that no one ever talks about. I mean, everyone talks about sex slavery and prostitution and forced prostitution, but there's a lot of domestic entrapment as well. I mean, there were a group of people in Queens. There were like deaf illegal immigrants working in a hotel room in Queens, and they were not allowed to leave. That was a few years ago. I remember that story. So I think that it would be useful. I don't know that the government of Mexico is particularly open to working with Trump at this point. You know, they've balked at the tariffs. So is the Canadian government. But I think that what we've seen with this whole situation with Colombia too, where, you know, the president of Colombia refused to take back a plane of illegal immigrants. And he said, you're not treating these people with dignity. Well, you know what's not treating them with dignity is making it so that people don't feel comfortable to stay in Colombia, right? And the U.S. enacted a free trade agreement with Colombia under George W. Bush that reduced tariffs on the U.S., you know, for exports to Colombia. And the U.S., I think there was like a 35% tariff on American goods going to Colombia. That got reduced. And part of the deal was to revitalize the Colombian economy so that people wanted to stay there. So what has Colombia done in the past 15 or so years? Have they done anything to help that situation? Have they done anything to make their citizens want to stay there and revitalize their own country? Just speaking as an American, I don't want to go to some other country and make that country better. I really just want my country to be better, you know, and maybe like that's a little overly patriotic and simplistic, but that's what I'm interested in. And I feel like if I were from some other country, that's what I would want too. You know, if I were Colombian, I'd be like, that's right. I'm Colombian. This is my nation. I want it to be awesome. Why would you not want that? And so the president of Colombia said, you know, you're sending people back on military flights. That's so undignified. How could you do that? You have to treat our people with more dignity. He hasn't treated them with any dignity when they cross the border illegally and come into other countries and ditch their passports at the border or whatever else they do to try and claim that they're asylum seekers or whatever else. And so when Trump was just like, fine, you don't want to do it, that's a 25% tariff. Oh, you're going to talk back some more? Now that's 50%. Oh, you still won't accept your own people back to their home, to their country where they were born? Now we're not going to issue diplomatic visas. Yeah. You know, get your people out of the country. Oh, you still don't want to do it? Now there's sanctions on your family.
So you mentioned.
And so the next thing that the president of Colombia did was he said, oh, do you need my plane to help you? And he offered his presidential plane to help.
Yeah. You mentioned the Colombian president and Donald Trump sparring. So why don't we talk about that? Go to the story. Colombia backs down on accepting deportees on military planes after Trump's tariff threats. Colombia has walked back from the brink of a damaging trade war with the United States, reaching an agreement on accepting deported migrants being returned on military planes after a flurry of threats from President Donald Trump that included steep tariffs. Colombia said Sunday evening it had agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of immigrants who entered the U.S. illegally after 2 U.S. military planes carrying deportees were blocked from entering the country. We will continue to receive Colombians and Colombian women who return as deportees, guaranteeing them decent conditions as citizens subject to rights. Foreign Minister Luis Gilberto Murillo said in a televised statement. He added that U.S. deportation flights had resumed and the Colombian presidential plane was being prepared to assist in repatriating citizens. The idea that the Colombian president actually meant the problem is the digs that they are flying in they're not good enough. I don't buy it for a second, but I do think that this speaks to how influential the United States is. People in the U.S. don't realize how much soft power the United States has. We don't have to threaten combat with everybody. Now, the leftists on X will go ahead and get it into a tizzy every time Donald Trump makes any kind of threat. But these threats are heated, and the other countries that are being threatened actually move because the United States is still the economic powerhouse. The United States still has the reserve currency of the world. So they have to move.
Well, Phil, it's carrots and sticks, and I feel like everyone's forgotten about that in the last 3 or 4 decades. We used to use carrots and sticks, and guess what? It's okay to use sticks sometimes, but I feel like the left, that woke virus, has ruined people's brains where they think they can't do anything that might offend somebody, so they're always too afraid to use a stick. And I think Trump is really showing, like you said, we are the greatest superpower on earth. It's okay for us to flex a little bit of muscle and use that stick from time to time, and this is the apotheosis of it, and it shows that it works and it's effective, and I hope he keeps doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that the United States shouldn't try to get better deals out of other countries because it might offend someone, I mean, that's so detrimental
That's
to
not
the
really
United
America first.
Yeah, though never. It's not just not America first. It's America last, which is, that was a meme idea going around the internet, but that's really the way that the Democrats have behaved. It's as if the Democrats believe that we are wrong for being as powerful as we are. We are wrong for when we try to be a world leader. We are wrong whenever we do things that benefit the United States because we're so rich and so powerful. Everything to the left is some type of Marxist power dynamic. And because the United States is the dominant power in the world, anytime the U.S. uses that power, even soft power, again, now I'm not talking about getting into military conflicts, but when the United States uses the soft power, the United States is the bad guy for having the audacity to try to get deals that are beneficial to the United States. And now these, just taking back your I don't know if they're, well, I mean, I assume they're all criminals to some degree because that's the people that are getting sent back right away.
Yeah,
just taking back your criminals, that is not something that the United States is out of line for saying, hey, take back your criminals.
And I feel like the left always has paralysis by analysis. They're so busy thinking about how this thing might offend somebody and how this might percolate out and it might, disparately affect some marginalized group. We need to stop thinking like that. We have an objective. We need to achieve the objective. What's the most efficient way we can achieve that objective? And stop overanalyzing everything. But I feel like that's all the left does. And like you said, they seem to be hell-bent on putting us last. And I'm glad that we finally have a president that seems to show how easy it is to actually just put us first. It's not that hard.
You also said something about when the U.S. tries to use soft measures to get changes. When we use soft measures, they call us Satan. So we whenever we try and do something play little games and do things diplomatically, everyone hates us anyway.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? They'll call us the godless Satan of the United States because we tried to do something diplomatic here in Lebanon, or we tried to do something sort of conciliatory over here in South America. And so if we're going to be if we're going to just be evil Satan anyway, we may as well just go for it and like do everything the right way and just get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, considering the way
They hate us now.
Yeah.
They hate us anyway. Like, just do it.
Yeah, the successes that the Donald Trump administration has had in this past week have been remarkable. Like, he's really, really made some moves, and things have all turned out just the way that Donald Trump and, by extension, the American people want. And so I think that this is a ringing endorsement of the policies that he wants. And it hasn't even taken tariffs. All it's taken is negotiation. But the left and the Democrats don't even have the stomach for negotiation.
What's great, too, is Trump doesn't have to negotiate. He doesn't have to even take very much action at all.
Yep.
All he has to do is spout off. He doesn't even have to spout off on Twitter. He just has to spout off on Truth Social, right? And say stuff. Everyone goes crazy, and he gets his way without having to do anything.
Yeah.
He just has to say stuff. And
I do miss him on X, though.
Well, sure. I wish he'd come back to X, too. I mean, we have the new rapid response team now. They're back on X. That's going to be an interesting, that'll be interesting.
Speaking of X, I saw a great quote on there today. It was by someone named Antonin Scalia, but I thought he passed away. But it said, everyone's so afraid of offending their enemies.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you care if you offend your enemies? It said you should be doing what's going to garner you the respect of your peers and just do the right thing. Why are we so afraid of offending our enemies? I don't know, but the left seems obsessed with it.
Yeah, or like Steve Bannon says, pray for your enemies, you know? Yeah.
But don't try to get them to like
exactly.
you. Why are we always trying to get our enemies to like us? I just don't. It's such an odd thing.
The a concern I have in that vein, I guess, is maybe I can see it from their perspective for a moment, is that if you make too many people hate you, the tide may shift and you may become very quickly no longer a superpower. Like if there were an invasion from the north and the south and the east and the west, nuclear,
No.
it would go nuclear. It would go. It would,
Well,
it would go
But
nuclear.
how would
Like,
that
if
happen?
Yeah, there is no like
there was like
Like
Chinese attacks, missiles fired. Like if
Well, I
cities
don't-
got hit all at once, like in a night, and we lost New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles.
Yeah, but all
Heck,
of those
Dallas.
places would get instantly nuked.
If we lost all those cities in a moment, like
No.
overnight,
Yeah, but
that would be.
all of our nuclear sites are elsewhere, though, are not even in them.
But we would still fight back. That's the thing, is the deterrence of force would probably make that not happen. But we would no longer be the superpower after that.
What
if that
is
were to happen.
what is the positive result for any country that initiates a nuclear war with the United States in your mind?
False flag? Like if you make it look like someone else did it, get the U.S. to strike back at the wrong person.
What I'm saying is, what would whatever country? So I don't know how you can't do a false flag with an all-out nuclear exchange, right? Like you can't, like China can't shoot all of its missiles and be like it was Russia, right? And either way, like that's just not possible. If the logistics of attacking the United States because of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, you can't be like, you can't do it under cover of darkness and hide it.
Well, they have nuclear submarines off the coast.
Nobody has enough nuclear submarines to take out the United States, and
It's not about. Oh, sorry to interrupt, man.
well, and nuclear like a lot of times, nuclear submarines are shadowed by other nuclear submarines. So there are hunter-killer class submarines that that all their job is to do is follow behind the nuclear submarines of other countries.
Like I don't think that it has happened by any means that too many people have been pissed off where they're like, all right, the liberal economic order is now done at 12:07 a.m. But because we're all still on really good trade relations with a lot of the world. But that would be the concern, is if we pissed off even our European allies, our South American allies. Obviously, Russia's ready to go for the throat. The Chinese would be happy to see the United States fall and trip over its own shoelaces.
Do you think that Russia is actually a threat, considering how much
They're overextended.
damage they've taken just fighting
They have to
Ukraine?
deal
Do you
with-
think that they're
they have to
actually?
I don't think
deal
they're a
with
direct
North
threat at
Korea
all.
now, too.
I don't think the amount of money that we owe to China's not really. There's no incentive for China to actually.
Also,
so,
we're their biggest
yeah,
exporter.
they like without the United States buying their, the cheap
It's
Chinese
all the crap we buy.
Yeah, like without the U.S. buying them, they go into a recession and possibly a depression. And they've got 1.5 billion people in that country. So like the Chinese Communist Party has to keep the population subdued to a certain degree. They don't have the military to actually suppress the population.
But
they have to do it economically.
I feel like a lot of problems and even more problems result when you try to appease everybody. That's why we have a fentanyl crisis in this country. That's why we have over 11 million undocumented migrants in this country. That's why we have a border war going on almost. There's a lot of problems that result when you try to appease everyone. And I think Donald Trump's definitely taking the route of breaking away from what the Democrats have been doing for the last 4 years. And I think it's working.
The only reason I'm asking Ian this question is because I really do think that your concerns are not really something you have to worry a whole lot about. I'm trying to like allay your fears and stuff, because really the United States is like, there are no countries that have an incentive to actually get into a confrontation with the United States. Every country on earth will do whatever they can to avoid a confrontation with the U.S.
What I've been thinking is, like, if we went to blows with the cartels in Mexico and it turned into like an Afghanistan where we just invade and take it over because the government's incapable of doing anything for us, so we have to establish our own puppet government, that might piss off the rest of the world to the point where they're like, this country has overstepped.
I don't think anyone would care if we invaded Mexico. I honestly,
agree.
I don't think so. I think if we took over Canada,
That would probably be a little more problematic.
That's a British
I
kingdom.
think the UK would be mad
Yeah.
if we took over Canada, and they might come at us with their little stabby knives or something, you know?
But hasn't Mexico invaded us effectively?
Yeah, I mean, but I think also if we took over Mexico and we subdued those cartels, everyone would be like, oh, I guess America's getting a little testy.
I mean,
you know, what's next?
I do kind of think you're
don't
right.
think
The rest of the world, at the very least,
I mean, what was the last time that Mexico was involved in something international? Wasn't that memo? Wasn't there like a
the last time they
forget the
almost
memo.
The last time they almost did was World War II. When
Right, with that memo.
The Germans
There
were
was like a
talking
thing.
like, we're gonna come over there.
and that was the last time.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Mexico doesn't have any type of military that could stand up to the United States. The cartels
They can't even stand up to the cartels.
Exactly. And so I think that if the United States decided that they wanted to go into Mexico, get rid of the people in government because of corruption, and actually prop up a government and go after the cartels, I think that the argument that the United States government could make is at least as compelling as the argument, actually probably more compelling than the argument the government made when going into Iraq.
Just because of proximity. They're our southern neighbor. How much more important could it be? The primacy of that is evident. They're our southern neighbor.
They're attacking. They're continuously attacking our population. The government of Mexico does not stop people that are traveling through the country to invade the United States when it comes to immigration. Illegal immigrants. They've done nothing to stop it. They've helped. They have a government that is entirely corrupt. Like the cartels are in control. They kill journalists. They kill mayors. Not even just big people in the federal government, but like if the mayor of a town the cartel wants to control doesn't comply, they'll kill him. They're brutal, absolutely brutal, at least as brutal as the terrorists in ISIS or what have you. So the argument that not that I'm endorsing this, but if the United States decided they were going to, I think the United States could make a better argument for invading Mexico, ousting the government, saying they're not a real government, ousting that government than the argument made for going into Iraq.
Mexico they acknowledged that they got 4,000 deportees back during the first week. And they're concerned about it, but I don't think that there's anything that they can really do about it. And what's interesting too is I saw this journalist saying it's not fair to these other countries to just drop a whole bunch of people on them unexpected.
That's what's
And
happening
it's
to
like,
us.
oh, okay. Is that not fair?
Super
Is
don't
that not
care.
right? You don't.
Super don't care.
I really don't care, Margaret.
Yeah,
You know,
I really don't care, Margaret. That's
But it's
that's
funny
we got
because
4,000 people. We get like quadruple that in an afternoon.
10 million in 4 years, at least 10 million, probably
Well,
15 million in 4 years.
It's over 2 million every year, and that's just the people who were accounted for. That's not the people who never came into contact with anybody or didn't surrender themselves or didn't apply for asylum or any of those other, the CBP1 app or any of that stuff.
I feel like it's always rules for thee and not for me. Like they always want us to abide by these things. And the hypocrisy of it is, what do you mean we can't do that? They've been invading us for the last 4 years by the millions, and that's okay.
And all these nations don't care. Claudia Sheinbaum, president of Mexico, she said, what we ask for is respect for human rights. What have you been doing, girl?
They've been bringing fentanyl into our country. Where's the respect for our children's human rights? No one cares about our
Or
kids'
Americans'
human
human
or
rights.
anyone.
Like any of that.
Yeah, I think that the idea that any other country, particularly in South America and south of the U.S. border, I don't think that any of those countries are in any position to criticize the United States at all. Most of them have basket case governments, right? Most of them can barely handle their own population. They're very, very frequently some crazy form of socialism that just doesn't work. They rewrite their constitutions every decade or so because people are miserable. They have constitutions that are hundreds of pages long because they're just essentially they're saying that everybody has a right to everything, and they quickly realize that just putting a right on paper doesn't make it materialize in the world.
Wait, socialism hasn't worked a single time? That's weird. I thought it was the best thing ever.
I know this is a surprise to me too.
This speaks to an actual a real phenomenon, is that there is such a strong left leaning in most of the world. There are very, very few, if any, right wing governments. Right, like nowadays.
Germany might be looking at one of those soon.
It's possible that they might, but if you think about the past 20 years,
would you call Islamic extremists right wing?
Maybe Saudi Arabia might be right wing because it's a monarchy.
Monarchy, right?
There are a handful of legitimate monarchies in the world still, and I think that those probably would be the clear right-wing governments, but the ones that make all the noise complaining about the United States, they're all leftists. Mm-hmm. And the arguments they make are always leftist arguments. Oh, you're oppressing us, you're so powerful, and we're so weak, and it's always a Marxist power dynamic. And the United States needs to just ignore that stuff and behave as the superpower that it is, because the U.S. does have the ability to influence other countries just with soft power. We don't need to get into conflicts with other countries. Most of the time, the U.S. has plenty of power to influence just with essentially with carrots. Hey, look, we won't do this. And maybe it is a little of the stick, but it's not like, not combat. So,
well, and I think it's interesting too that, leftist ideology in theory sounds appealing.
Yes.
But, a few centuries ago with Adam Smith writing Wealth of the Nations and then later Ayn Rand, we understood that capitalism was the way reality needs to work because all the incentives run in the right direction. So it's interesting that leftist ideology still has such a hold on people's minds, even here in America in 2024, when we've seen throughout history that it just doesn't work. It's good in theory, but in reality, we know what really works and we keep rejecting it. And I think Donald Trump is going back to what really works. And I think it's time we ditch the kind of leftist head in the clouds thinking.
It seems like capitalism is pretty awesome. Least worst system ever been tried by humanity that I can tell economically, except, and it's not perfect. I'm not saying just get rid of it, but like generational wealth things. So
unfettered capitalism can be pernicious and is not good either. That can lead to a lot of corruption.
Yeah, so you tax the wealthy families more, but wealthy family has a kid, they give their kid all their wealth. It makes sense. You want to give your kid your money. Poor family has a kid, the kid's eating dirt, picking through feces for seeds so he doesn't starve to death. Wealthy family has a kid, gives him the best education, the best food, he has the greatest IQ because he's healthy. And then that all of a sudden creates this this disparity between humans, and you're like, how come that guy over there is 9 and he gets a bicycle and I don't? And so that's, I think, where this leftism
Adam
comes
Smith noted that in Wealth of the Nations, and noted that unfettered capitalism could lead to some really bad things. And so that was laid out there. And so, no, I don't think anyone's advocating, even Milton Friedman or Thomas Sowell or anyone would advocate for completely laissez-faire, unfettered capitalism. But at its base, it works a lot better than these leftists.
We also have, in America, we have pretty much I would say the only country in the world where you can start out eating dirt, envying your friend's bike, and rise to be a rich man, right? Rise to be president, rise to be captain of industry. So even with generational wealth, if you look at the way that wealth works, it usually only lasts like 3 generations. That's why in the UK you have all of these aristocrats who are broke, right? That's like a thing. That's like a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke in the UK because that happens. But here in the US, you can be poor. You can grow up poor and you can rise to the top. And I think that's something that we don't see anywhere else. It's something that we see with the benefit of the social contract. We see that with the benefit of capitalism and with a lot of the social programs that we do have in this country, like for a long time, before it got totally infiltrated, a really good public education system. You know, I think about my grandparents who were the children of immigrants. My grandmother went to public school in Brooklyn, New York. And in public school, she learned opera. She learned Italian. She learned French. She learned all of these things. She graduated early and ended up going to Hunter College, another public school. And she graduated that to become a teacher in Brownsville, Brooklyn. She grew, her parents they owned a grocery shop. They had immigrated. They got here with nothing, and they managed to end up owning a grocery shop. One thing that happened was my great-grandfather opened his grocery shop on 34th Street, in Manhattan. And when Macy's came in, Macy's wanted to buy out the whole block. So they bought his grocery shop. He got money from that because he had something he could sell. He moved to Brooklyn, opened a new shop. And then, the next thing, his granddaughter is an attorney, working for the SEC. You can work your way up in this country like nowhere else on earth. And so I think that while what you're saying is true about, poverty and all of that stuff, and that being a problem with capitalism, I think that's true. But I also think that we do have a fix for that here that we haven't seen anywhere else. We can probably keep making it better, but I don't think that we can make it better by pushing equity so that just every kid gets a bike. Because that kid eating dirt who wants the bike, maybe he's going to get a summer job. Maybe he's going to get a summer job working at 7-Eleven, save up for that bike. He's going to like getting paid every other week, and he's going to work hard his whole life. And so that's something, too, that we're seeing. If we, there's a lot of hardworking illegal immigrants in this country. Should they all be getting the jobs instead of that poor kid eating dirt, who was born in Detroit, raised there?
And there's also something.
This is a question too. Can we do better for our citizens?
Yeah.
By prioritizing them.
And we are the culmination of our experiences too. So the idea of kids have to learn to go to work and learn to save and learn to do things. If you just give them stuff. And we see this happen a lot with people that win the lottery and stuff. They don't look at if they're
MC Hammer.
If you're bad with money, if you don't learn how to manage your money, and you're just handed a boatload of money, you'll squander it and stuff. And kids that are just handed things, they don't see the same value as when they have to work for it. So I do think that you've got a lot of there's substance to your point, but I think that, like you said, it's the least bad system that's ever been tried, and I think that it's the only system that really does allow upward mobility.
There's the public education system. It has evolved now, I think, to the internet. It used to be, you kind of feel like the education was given to you. You're sent to a spot, and then it's given to you by the teacher. Now you have to go get it. You have to seek it out, and it's there. All the data, it's available to learn for kids, and you don't have to wait for everyone else in your class to figure it out because you can do it as fast as you want now. But you have to go get it. You can't wait for it to be given to you.
I mean, I don't know.
I think that's true.
You don't think that? In public school doesn't. The public school still has lesson programs, and if you go to school, no, they don't.
No, not really. One thing that public schools have are Chromebooks, just like Ford infiltrated LA to make sure that they never had a decent public transit system. You have had Google Chrome books infiltrating public schools so that every kid comes home with a Chromebook and their homework is IXL or any of these programs where you have the computer teach you. One thing that I think is really missing, and I was talking to my son about this the other day, is I had teachers, right? Like I remember my teachers and what they taught me. I remember my 4th grade teacher and the way she taught me multiplication tables, Mrs. Fife. It was very difficult. But I remember these teachers that I had who were passionate about teaching and passionate about the information they had and the knowledge that they had and, the books that they loved. I had a teacher in high school, Peter Rinka, and he gave us this list of books that were like, you need to read all these books in your life. It wasn't just do this for my class, pass the test. It was these books. And I'll never forget what he told us. He was in World War II. He was a soldier in World War II, and he loved paperback books. He always had a paperback in his back pocket, and he said they fit perfectly, and he was never without a paperback book. This is like this kind of teacher who is just passionate. They are, I'm sure, out there, but in a lot of ways, they're stifled by this Common Core computer-generated educational programming that it's hard to break out of. And it's hard for kids to find their passion when they're being taught by AI programming.
Well, and they're also being taught like propaganda. Me and my brothers were homeschooled our whole lives. So my brothers were yanked out of elementary school. I was like 2 or 3 years old, and I was homeschooled my whole life along with my brothers. And that's because in the late 80s and early 90s, I was born in 87, my brothers were already being sent home with propaganda books. And my parents saw the writing on the wall, and they knew what was happening, and they were having disputes with the elementary schools called Thomas Paine in Urbana, Illinois. And they said, nope, we're teaching you at home. We've had enough of this. So we were homeschooled our whole life until college. I went to high school for 1 year, my sophomore year, because I begged my parents to let me go. And think about it. That was 20 years ago. And think how far the public education system has fallen since even then. And this all started in the late 80s and early 90s, and it's just going to keep getting worse.
We're going to jump to this story here. Vance clashes with CBS host Margaret Brennan during fiery debate over refugee program paused by Trump. Go ahead and play this. It's very short, but it's worth watching.
I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember.
Oh, did they cut it out?
I sent you the clip.
You sent it. Was that not the same one?
I sent you a longer.
There are so many good moments from this interview.
It was awesome.
JD just holds the line. I think Asmongold, if you follow, he's a gaming streamer, probably the most famous gamer streamer online. He was saying this is the video, this interview is an exemplification of why Vance will be president in 2028.
I just sent it to you again.
Well, I told someone, it reminds me of when Matt Gaetz was confronted about why he made comments saying that all the people at anti-abortion or pro-abortion rallies were fat and overweight, and the interviewer...
Go ahead.
The interviewer said, don't you think some people would find that offensive? And Matt Gaetz said, be offended.
Yeah.
And I think that's the line that Vance is taking here.
I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals have been properly vetted.
But there are 30,000 people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people are vetted.
Good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
So that the I don't really care, Margaret, has already become a meme. I actually retweeted one of the better memes about it, but I think that it speaks to the opinion of a lot of people in the U.S. nowadays. They don't really want to hear the excuses from people on the left, the media, who've absolutely destroyed their credibility over the past, 5 years or so. They don't want to hear your excuses. They don't care about you rationalizing this or saying, well, if you look at it this way, then crime is down, or if you look at it this way, then blah, blah, blah. They don't care. And I think that JD Vance really kind of, has his finger on the pulse of America.
I think the media and the left in general is so used to everyone kowtowing to them that they're always shocked when someone's like, no, you're not going to guilt me into anything, and I'm just going to tell you the truth, and I don't care if people are mad about it or you're upset about it. And so I think, again, Trump is kind of setting the standard with his administration of just doing something and making no apologies for it. And I think if you don't play the blame game and the guilt game with the left, they lose a lot of power over you, and I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, that's the thing about shame is it doesn't do anything if you don't feel guilty about what they're trying to shame you over.
Yep. And I think it's working, and I love it. I love that JD Vance is doing that. And Trump does it on another level too. So
people can you bring that up, Serge? That meme. So people are sharing things like this, and honestly, like I said, I think that this is going to be a meme that's going to have legs. There's a handful of them that have really caught on, and I really think I don't really care, Margaret, is something that you're going to hear a lot from people when it comes to criticizing stuff. You'll see it all over X. You see it all over X already, but I think that look, nobody wants to hear the left anymore. They lost big in the election. They lost the presidency, the Electoral College. They lost both the House and the Senate. They don't have the Supreme Court anymore. And almost every single Kamala Harris picked up 0 counties. I don't think she picked up 1 county in the election.
I don't think so.
So
she lost stuff that Biden had gained.
Oh yeah, I think it was like something like 11 counties in California went Republican.
There was one that hadn't been Republican since 1890, and it finally went Republican. If that doesn't show you how ineffective Kamala was, but these people want us to shed tears over the migrants, and it's like there is literally a fentanyl epidemic in our country. People are dying. Yeah. Families are being torn apart. 11 million plus migrants here. Hundreds of thousands of missing migrant children. 50,000 illegal migrants in Chicago since August of 2022, and up to 200,000 in Chicago, my city, right now. And you want me to make apologies for the fact that we're sending them back? I just don't play their shame game. Don't feel guilted by them. The only people that should feel guilty are the ones that are saying these people should be able to come into our country and destroy it. They're the ones that should apologize. They're the ones that should feel guilty for the fentanyl epidemic, not us.
Yeah, I don't see the types of things that the left has been, so adamantly pushing. I don't see them being persuasive anymore. I think not only is it something that your average normie, and by normie I mean the kind of person that consumes maybe an hour of news per week. They grab their news while they're grabbing breakfast as they're also trying to get the kids ready for school or whatever. That person has kind of noticed, hey, this is the situation that's going on with illegal immigration is bad, and the Republicans' messaging has really gotten through. So I think that the average normie is already on the kind of the MAGA side, as it is, first of all, and then second of all, the Gen Z is really strongly At least the Gen Z young men are strongly right wing.
How post-election is the mainstream media still so out of touch with the average person? A lot of us thought they were going to realize the error of their ways and go, you know what? People don't want propaganda. They just want facts. They want us to report the news objectively. How, going back to your normie, is the mainstream media still so out of touch with everyday Americans?
It's kind of like if there's a bunch of little, I don't know what you call it, leeches sucking off of a fish, and then the fish dies. There's a little period of time where the leeches continue to suck off of the dead fish.
That's a good analogy.
And yeah, they're trying to, they're not, yeah.
When will they see the error of their ways? Do you think the mainstream media will ever get that they are out of touch with the average
Probably
American?
like 7 months.
So I feel like, legacy media like MSNBC, like they're not changing. They're always going to be the left.
Even if viewership drops 50% like it has been, they're still going to peddle the same lies.
Well, they cut the salaries of Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid and some other people instead. Yeah.
So when are they going to realize that it's not working?
There is always going to be some market for that perspective, even if it's not, the dominant message, right? And I think it's probably likely that, they're going to live in that space, indefinitely. They've made their brand the left. They're the cable news left. And I think it's possible that CNN will move away. I don't know. It might take a little more time. I think CNN doesn't have the same kind of commitment to the left the way that the way MSNBC does.
They've been trying a little harder. CNN, they got Scott Jennings out there. They've got, what's his name? I forget his name. But anyway, they have a couple of people out there.
But then you have people like Cenk and Anna from the Young Turks who have come around. And they're like, you know what? No, I'm not with the left anymore. And I think more journalists are going to do that.
Michael Singleton.
Yeah.
He's good too. Yeah.
So when it comes to Cenk and Anna, I feel like Anna might actually become more of a normie. I'm not sure if Cenk is. I think Cenk sees the writing on the wall monetarily. I think Anna, because Anna has a personal experience.
Yes,
or
she
multiple
does.
personal
Very personal. Yeah.
Like the whole birthing person thing and getting attacked for just saying that. And like, she was getting the whole "you're a Nazi" because that's, the left just goes straight to "you're a Nazi." There's two speeds where they love bomb you, and then as soon as you do something they don't like, well, then you're a Nazi. You're literally Hitler.
So who are the normies now?
People that don't watch news.
People that don't watch news are the normies.
That's what I think. Yeah, when I say, and that's because I think that it's normal to not be like wrapped up in the news. Like we live in a bubble. I think it's
really a pleasure though when like I take Saturdays pretty much entirely off, and it's such a pleasure to just be like, just breathe normally.
Yeah, so I think the people that are like, the people that have normal jobs and live normal lives and aren't constantly, maybe they watch sports, but I mean, I don't know. I know that like just overall sports viewership is down, and I'm not sure where those people have gone, but I do think that like the normies are the people.
Maybe they're here.
But then I don't think that there's been a significant expansion of like the people with a political appetite, has there?
I don't know. I mean, remember when Trump was campaigning and he said, if you vote this time, you don't have to vote again?
Yeah.
He was like, they wigged out. But what he meant was, I'll get the country back on track and you can just chill. You don't have to worry about it.
But the left said he wanted to establish a monarchy with those remarks, which was ridiculous.
Think that's what he meant.
He didn't. It's exactly what you said.
Yeah. The left is, histrionic about everything. And I think that most people want that. I really think that part of the reason why the left got beat so badly is people are tired of hearing that everyone's a Nazi, everyone's evil, that the people that disagree are the spawn of Satan.
You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're transphobic for thinking a man can't magically become a woman because he threw on a dress. It's lame. It's like you said, it's not working anymore. It's not effective. So I think the left needs to maybe debate people on the merits and the facts instead of trying to guilt them with ad hominem attacks all the time. I don't know when the left's going to learn their lesson, but they're still doing the same thing.
Well, we'll probably pull this article. Selena Gomez leaned on her emotions and with this crying video, and then deleted it within I don't know, 6 hours or whatever, because apparently her fans had some backlash. It's when you see the waves of violence perpetrated by illegal immigration, by particularly people that have come into the country illegally, maybe even claiming asylum from somewhere, but just getting in here and then taking over a hotel or killing a girl, like that talks to the normies and the people that aren't, like, they're just kind of, they feel instead of think their way through life a lot of, but that makes you think, like, realize, like, okay, let's like slow down this illegal immigration. I'm going on a little much. Phil's got the video pulled up. This might be worth watching, actually.
Yeah, so from the Post-Millennial, Selena Gomez cries for Mexicans illegally in the U.S. facing deportation in now deleted post. All my people are getting attacked. The children, I don't understand. I'm so sorry. It's because they were here illegally, Selena. Pop star Selena Gomez took to Instagram in a now deleted video to lament the deportations of illegal immigrants under the Trump administration. Tom Homan, Trump's anointed border czar, has implemented a mass deportation program to remove illegal immigrants who have gone on to commit additional crimes during their time in the United States. Selena Gomez, what are you doing hanging out with criminals? Gomez cried on camera saying, I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children, I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise. Look, again, the people that are being deported at this point, right, they are criminals. They are going and rounding up people that have criminal records, that have committed crimes in the United States. And we're not doing the whole, they're here illegally, so that makes them a criminal. I'm talking about, they have said that they're getting the worst first. Like they're getting the people that have committed serious crimes, that have been, committed larceny, theft, assault, murder. They're getting those people because those people are in lockup and they're going to the jails and they're saying, do you have any illegals in here? And they're rounding those people up and shipping them out first. So the people that are getting sent away, if they are Selena Gomez's people, Selena, you are hanging out with the wrong crowd. So let's see if we can take a listen to this here.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. They don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
I mean,
yeah, all my people are getting attacked. The children. Hyperbole.
Does she mean
That's a lot of hyperbole.
She's like
high-paid actors?
She's a singer and was pretty, so she became famous. She dated Justin Bieber, so she became famous. That's who she is.
Is that how she got famous?
Yeah, she was Justin's girlfriend when they were like 15 or something. And she's obviously not very intelligent if she says things like, all my people are getting attacked. It's not true. It's hyperbole. It's ridiculous. And she's emotionally out of control. So just a disturbing expression from this person. I'm glad she took it down.
She later deleted the post, but in repost of the video, she was roundly mocked on X. Gomez from Texas is of Mexican and Italian ancestry, with her grandparents having immigrated to the U.S. from Monterrey in the 1970s.
Legally?
Well, I
would
assume
hope.
so.
Yeah.
I assume so.
Imagine legally.
Savannah Hernandez says Selena Gomez is a billionaire who is surrounded by security, has zero idea of how dangerous the country has become due to illegal immigration, doesn't care enough about American women or children to know they've been getting raped and murdered at the hands of her people, and is now crying from the comfort of her mansion about how we're all horrible people are waiting for wanting a safer country. Disgusting behavior.
Think my people are the Germans, because I'm of German ancestry, for instance. To think that those German people are my neighbors, are the people that I wake up and see and talk to. Those are my people, the people I'm surrounded by. Bloodline doesn't mean jack, man. You got to get over that crap.
Well, and it's symptomatic of the brain rot on the left, like we were talking about earlier, where they don't understand what the normal person's going through. Yeah. We have to deal with the repercussions of these people. I live in Chicago. I see them outside my Whole Foods, outside my Jewel, outside my Mariano's, and outside my Target. I saw a girl who couldn't have been more than 11 or 12 years old who was about 8 months pregnant, a migrant, begging with her entire family. I see all of this stuff. I'm affected by it. A lot of people listening are affected by it. Selena Gomez in her mansion in Calabasas isn't affected by it. So she can sit there and pontificate and tell us that we're all a bunch of narrow-minded, xenophobic bigots, but we're the ones who have to deal with it. And again, I just think
maybe her cleaning lady got deported or something.
Exactly. They're just so out of touch.
Peachy Keenan posted on Twitter that somebody she knows, nanny, got deported. So, I mean, I get that. I remember when I was in high school and my little brother had a nanny, and she was from Poland and she was here illegally, and there was all kinds of she disappeared one day and everyone was like, did she get deported? What happened? She just left, but she didn't say anything. It was weird. But yeah, so I think the other thing about the Selena Gomez video is she's saying all the children.
Yeah.
And exactly all the children, like exactly. The Biden administration lost, 340,000 children in the system?
Yeah.
DHS doesn't know where they are. HHS doesn't know where they are. They haven't necessarily been sending out court notices for these people. You saw with the CBP One app and the asylum seekers that a lot of asylum seekers coming across with children and whatever else used the same addresses to say that this is where they were going in the U.S. And they were vacant lots. They were warehouses. They were nothing. So yes, all the children, Selena Gomez, where are all the children? That's the real question. They've been smuggled across the border. They've been bought and sold.
Everybody around this table's probably seen The Sound of Freedom. Have you guys all seen it?
Yeah, I have.
It's I saw it for the first time recently, and it's rough. Like, watching the movie, because apparently all the stuff except for some of the dialogue is all true, and they're talking about kids 4, 5, 6, 7 years old getting sexually abused multiple times a day, and that's the reality of the situation at the border. Like, never mind the fact that 100,000 or whatever Americans have died from fentanyl, right? From fentanyl overdoses that have been shipped in by the cartels that they get the fentanyl from China and they ship it into the U.S. The cartels run it in because it's profitable. But like, even if you were to get rid of the drug aspect, you still got like 500,000 kids that are being trafficked. That's 500,000 kids that are getting sexually assaulted multiple times a day.
Well, where's her tears for Lake and Riley? Where's her tears for, like you said, all the
Jocelyn Nungary,
the children of parents that have died of fentanyl? Where's her tears for the people that have to, live with the effects of higher crimes in their city and violent essays that are happening because of this? It's so performative, I think. I think it's all virtue signaling. I don't think there's anything genuine about it. And it almost looks scripted. I mean, it looked like she was trying to cry, but she couldn't really cry, and she was about to laugh in between the sobs. I just think it was totally performative, and she thought it would get her some likes, but...
To yell out, "Oh, the children," like that's like when the Hindenburg was coming down, and they're like, "Oh, the humanity," and it's like become a meme.
Yeah,
think of the children.
That was an early meme.
Yeah. Oh, the humanity. I'm glad she deleted the post. What happened? Her crowd was like, "Selena, this is really bad take."
Well, she got mocked a lot because honestly, like, this is something that we've talked about here. Like, the United States, the people of the United States want to see people, criminals deported. That, like, I think
it's a huge number of people.
Yeah, deporting criminals is like 100%. Just deporting illegals in general is like 60 or 70% of the population want to see illegals deported. When it comes to like actual criminal aliens, it's approaching 100% of the American people, and everybody that pays any attention.
We can commit crimes ourselves.
Yeah, right.
The only people who don't think they should be deported is literally the mainstream media. No, that's the only people.
The MSNBC crowd.
Well, it's the mainstream media, but it's the leftists, because there are two groups, right? First of all, there are the leftists that think that if you cause crime or if you commit crime, you did it because of your circumstances, right? So it's not your fault. It's the system that we live in. It's capitalism, it's blah, 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 blah. And then there are the other group that don't want to have a successful society because we're capitalist, and like Marcuse says, capitalism delivers the goods. So they want to see as much volatility, as many problems in the society as possible, so that way people will engage in revolutionary activities, because happy people do not engage in revolutionary activity.
And it's not a conspiracy. I mean, George Soros literally funds DAs for that exact purpose, to wreak havoc and sow discord in civilized societies, not just in America, but he's also ruined the economies of, 10 other countries by shorting against it. So, I mean, it's not a conspiracy to say that. And Saul Alinsky and Rules for Radicals talked about how you can, sow discord and dissonance and stuff. So all of this stuff is straight out of the playbook. And like you said, the left has a vested interest in ruining this country.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about immigration a lot. Why don't we go ahead and move on to this one here? Nick Sorter was posting on Twitter, President Trump is calling for an end to the federal income tax. He gives the yes. He gives a stamp of approval. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. America was great well before the federal government took 30+% of every dollar we earn. End it. We're going to go ahead and take a listen to what President Trump had to say.
America is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. Was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary, because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, so what is the panel's opinion on
I love
on
it.
this?
Although there's one, I mean, yes, I personally would like to not pay any income tax at all. That would be so nice. They take so much money. They're so mean. It's so not fair. And then even when you file your taxes and you get an accountant and you pay the accountant to file your taxes, because taxes are too complicated a lot of times to file yourself, which also
Intentionally.
It shouldn't be so complicated that you have to pay somebody else to do it for you, especially when the government knows how much you owe. Like, why am I doing this? It's like $700 to pay the accountant, and then they file the taxes, and then the IRS gets back to me and they're like, actually, you owe us another $5 million. It's like ridiculous. It's not fair. So on that level, that would be great. On the other hand, it makes sense that Trump loves the Gilded Age, which was really bad for labor. I mean, all the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and all of the robber barons and the train companies, they all got rich off of the backs of people eating dirt, envying their friends' bicycles, and, not being able to make a decent living. And here in West Virginia, of course, like with the coal miners, that was a big issue too. Like, coal miners had, they worked in the coal mines. They lived in housing provided by the company. They paid rent to their landlord, which was their boss, and they got paid a lot of times in scrip, which they could only spend at the company store, which is why we needed labor unions in the first place, was to liberate people from this indentured servitude. So if we could,
so communist right now.
I know. I'm into. I think private sector unions are worthwhile. Ooh, not public sector unions, but if we could obliterate income tax by making foreign countries pay all of our bills, that would be cool. So long as we don't just exploit a bunch of American workers.
I heard someone talking about a consumption tax as well. Is that something that you guys think?
What's a consumption tax? Like you buy a boat, like Lux tax?
No. So instead of having a tax on making money, there's a federal tax on spending money. So there's
a sales tax.
So it's
on
like
everything?
like a sales tax on everything.
There should still not be sales tax on food.
Well, what do you guys think?
I don't like any kind of tax.
Well, of course not. Who likes taxes?
But it's a little socialistic to take away 25-30% of our income. So I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like it. And it disincentivizes people to work hard. You see it all the time in your personal life. Why work harder when you're going to go up and just end up paying
And then they just
more?
take more.
And then they just take more. I have a friend
Do you ever get a raise?
You
get your raise and you're like, oh, there's $2 more in my paycheck. I got like a $10,000 raise.
That's the thing. As you're approaching the next tax bracket, you're actually incentivized to work less, because if you go into the next tax bracket,
Yes.
you have to go significantly into the next tax bracket to actually make money, because you'll go into the next tax bracket by, say you go in by $10,000 or whatever, and it's like, oh, look, you owe an extra $25,000 in taxes. So you literally will take home less because you went into another tax.
I have a friend who owns a small business. He's a veteran. It's a veteran-owned small business. His name's Ben Wanzer in San Antonio, and they do commercial buildings. And he was telling me not only how much money he was losing because overhead has gone up exponentially in the last 4 years under Biden, to the point that he thought he was going to have to close a successful business down.
Yeah.
But he was scared, as you said, Phil, to go up into the next tax bracket. He said, there's no reason for me. I'm just going to get hit harder. So,
Yeah.
I mean...
My band, All That Remains, like we did a tour in 2022, and then we did another tour just this past in August and September, and the overhead, the expense of the tour in 2024 was significantly more than the expense in 2022. I was looking at some of the prices that we were paying for things, just for people. We had fewer people on the crew on this tour because we were doing a support tour as opposed to a headline tour, so we weren't carrying our own lighting package and stuff like that. And we still spent more. We spent more money on overhead on this tour than we did on the previous tour. In the previous tour, I think we had like 6 people on our crew, and on this one we had 4.
Wow. He said
and we didn't have a light. Like I said, we didn't have a lighting rig on this one. We had a lighting rig on the other one. So I mean, like, it was drastically more expensive on this most recent one.
He said the cost of his materials went up 400% under Biden.
Insane.
Jeez.
He said, I can't make a profit, dude. He said, I'm doing all of these big commercial buildings. He does power cleaning. He goes, I can't even make a profit.
Insane. But I think that, I mean, the libertarian in me is going to say, of course, taxation's bad. Taxation is actually theft. It's theft of your time. And so, there's not a bit of getting rid of taxes that I'm going to complain about. I do like the idea of using tariffs, but this is something that I continuously say, that people have the idea that taxes pay for things the government wants to do. They have that ingrained in their head, and that is just not the way the system works anymore. The taxation that you pay, the tax money that you pay, is destroyed. You don't pay taxes so that way the government can fund something. You pay taxes to manage inflation. If the government wants to do something, the government just prints the money. Congress passes a law, says, okay, we're going to appropriate this much money. The Federal Reserve prints it up and just pays for it. So the government doesn't need to actually tax you to pay for things. The taxation is used to manage inflation. The government has 2 tools. They use the interest rate, and they use taxation to manage the money supply. So the government doesn't need to tax you to pay for anything. So the reason they tax is so you have less money, because they need to take money out of circulation. So literally, there's no reason for it other than to make the American people poorer. So I'm all for getting rid of the income tax, because they actually don't need it. They just print money when they want to spend money.
But then it might exacerbate inflation.
I mean, look, there is that possibility, but right now, inflation is a problem that's like sticky because it gets to the point where when whatever you do exacerbates inflation, right? If you increase the interest rate, right, then that'll actually become inflationary at some point. So it's really difficult to get rid of inflation once you've got that ball rolling. That's why we're still at that's why they stopped cutting the interest rates.
There's actually a lot of economists in a school of thought that argue exactly that you actually make inflation worse when you raise the Fed fund rate, and it's actually not making inflation any better, and you actually prolong inflation when you raise the rate. And so there's these two schools of thought, and a lot of people think it's a settled issue, that if you raise the rate, it's going to curtail inflation, and that's not the case. It can make it worse.
And I'm not an economist, but it seems to me that the best option is to allow the American people to hold on to their money and actually invest it in their own businesses, in their own lives, go out and do things that spur growth and actually create tangible, profitable things in the country. That's a better use of the money supply than for the government to take it just to destroy it to try to control inflation.
That's real trickle down economics.
I mean, look, the phrase trickle down economics bothers me because that's something that the left came up with. It's like supply side economics is a real thing. People say supply side economics is BS, but like they're all walking around with the most clear evidence that supply side economics works, and that's a smartphone. Most people in here remember before they had a smartphone, they didn't need a smartphone. Now everybody that got a smartphone, the smartphone has become an absolute necessity. Some people can remember a time before they had a laptop and they didn't need it. Now that they have a laptop, they absolutely couldn't live without it. So that right there is evidence that supply side economics works. Just because you didn't know, just because you don't think you need a new thing doesn't mean that a new thing that gets developed isn't going to become the most useful thing in your life.
When I was a kid, my mom had all these cigar boxes. I don't know why she had them, but she had all these cigar boxes. And me and my friend Julia, who lived next door, we used to take tinfoil and all this other stuff, and we would make laptops out of them. And this was in like the mid 80s, before laptops existed. And we would pretend we were on a spaceship and that these were our portable computers, and we would like do stuff.
Look at you,
in
visionary.
The computers. But I don't think it was. My story indicates that it wasn't all that visionary for laptops to be created. Me and Julia wanted laptops long before they were actually invented. And so when finally there were computers and all I wanted was a laptop, and I got my first laptop in 1994, and I was like, finally, where have you been my whole life? I got an Acer Anywhere little laptop. My dad got it for me. And I was stoked because I'd wanted one since I was like 8 years old.
Since it was imaginary.
Since it was imaginary.
Steve Jobs, you're not that smart, buddy.
We all wanted it. But and then also when the iPods came out, I was like, I'm waiting for this in phone form,
oh, okay.
Because I think there are some technological advancements that we are all just waiting for. Like we're all just waiting for proper jetpacks. Like we still kind of want them.
I mean, I like the idea, but the
flying cars. There's a lot of stuff I think that we have collectively imagined that we're all just kind of like ready for that to be the next thing.
I mean,
I want a flying car more than I want a driverless car. Come on.
I like the idea of a flying car.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the traffic would get worse and the crashes would be more deadly.
I don't know that the traffic would get worse, but I wonder how. See, the thing is, like everyone that drives now, like 99% of the people that drive only know 3 rules of the road, right? They know the red light means stop. They know that
yellow means fast.
Yeah, and that's like all. Nobody knows what the word yield even means.
No one knows how to merge.
No one knows how to merge. No one knows what the word yield means. I guarantee 9 out of 10 people don't know what the difference between yellow lines and white lines are. They don't know the difference between
This is a benefit to having learned how to drive in my 40s.
Well,
is that
what? Yeah. Oh yeah, New York.
Yeah, is that I took my driving test just a couple of years ago. So I remember all of that stuff. And because I learned how to drive in Brooklyn, like my first highway driving was the BQE.
Oh,
it's like I know the rules inside and out.
people can't even
I may not be a great driver, but I at least know the rules.
There's so many people that can't even deal with a roundabout or a rotary.
Roundabouts are confusing, though.
They are
in
bad.
Their defense. Even I almost got into an
accident. You're both wrong. You're both wrong.
Terrible.
They're way better than a four-way stop or a light.
It depends what city you're in. In Boston, there's roundabouts actually in Cape Cod, and those are easy to navigate. But whenever I'm in Wisconsin and I get on one, I always get turned around. Yeah, and my GPS kind of freaks out.
Well, the GPS says take the third exit, and you're like, but I don't even know how many exits there are on this damn thing. Where do I start counting? Do I start counting right now, or do I start counting at the first one I hit?
I want to know who invented the roundabout.
I've ended up just going around for a while before.
My Tesla navigates the roundabouts without a problem at all. It's incredible.
Well, I just drive a normal car, so I have to figure it out with my own brain.
You should be able to figure it out. You can, you can do things like write pieces for the post-millennial. You should be able to do this.
Writing is easy. Roundabouts are annoying.
No, they're not. You're wrong. Who's the Pierre L'Enfant French guy? 1790s. Why are you
don't like
the
that
roundabout,
guy.
Serge?
History of the roundabout.
Nice thing about the roundabout is you don't have to exit. You can just stay on the roundabout.
I've
so
done
you
that.
can't really miss your exit. You just don't want to take one too soon. So take your time, get familiar with the roundabout, read the signs. Next time you're there,
let
you won't
everyone
have to
think
think
just
about it.
yield and merge in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go to this last little bit here to kind of wrap it up. Roz Alerts is saying that breaking, Google Maps has announced it will update its platform to reflect changes introduced by President Trump, renaming the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America and displaying Mount McKinley instead of Denali. Look, man, you can just do things when you're the president of the United States, and the world complies. I personally think this speaks to what we were talking about earlier, how if you just say no, we're going to do this. You can really shift the Overton window about what is and is not possible. Because to be honest with you, when I heard the Gulf of America, I laughed and I was like, that would be hilarious.
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, so did Hillary Clinton.
I love that.
But at the same time, like nobody's laughing anymore because there you go. Google Maps is going to do it. And to be honest with you, when you hear a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump says, at first glance, you're kind of like, what? Ha ha ha. But then you hear about the reasoning behind it and you're like, oh, whether it be Greenland or whether it be the Panama Canal, and you hear what's going, the situation surrounding both of those, you're like, oh, okay, maybe it does make sense. Greenland is in North America, not in Europe. In Greenland, the ice sheets are melting, and the U.S. is really going to, you don't want China and Russia controlling those waterways.
Never mind Denmark.
Yeah, I mean, Denmark doesn't have the military to do it. It's the United States that has to do it.
Right.
In fact, in World War II, the United States was like, Denmark, this is yours, but actually it's ours for now because we don't want the Nazis taking it. That was a real risk, So, I mean, the idea that, you can't do things like, especially something simple like changing Denali back to Mount McKinley and changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
I love Gulf of America.
I love it.
Sounds
I want
better.
some Gulf of America merch.
The only downside is it's 4 syllables instead of 3. Mexico it's
America.
easier to say it,
That's
but
not enough.
I get the meaning, I guess.
Every time Trump does something, I'm like, why hasn't anyone done that before? It was kind of easy
nervy.
and simple. It's because he just doesn't care who he offends, and I think we needed a leader like that.
Well, that's
I don't really care, Margaret.
Yep.
yeah. I mean,
I think he's running in 2028, and I think that solidifies it.
that would be
like,
great.
Where's my I don't really care Margaret shirt?
I would
be-
be enthusiastically
do
vote
that.
for J.D. Vance if he ran in 2028.
I would probably
yeah,
as
at
well.
this
He's a
stage,
very
I
smart
would.
guy. But I mean, the idea that the world does bend to the will of the leader that says, I'm going to do this, particularly when it's small stuff. Like, so in the United States, we call it the Gulf of America. Another, Mexico might continue to call it the Gulf of Mexico, as long as Mexico gets to remain a sovereign nation. But who knows how long that's going to be? You know, and if it doesn't matter if other countries call it other things, the United States can say, hey, this is what we call it here.
I think we're the biggest superpower in the world, economically and militarily, and I think we should act like it. And I'm actually proud to be American. I feel like there's actually pride in something to be proud of now because we actually act like the superpower we are, and I'm just kind of disappointed that it took us this long to act this way.
I like this because it's not it's taking it away from the nationalistic aspect of the Gulf, that it belongs to a country, and it's reestablishing it as a continental Gulf. It's the North-South American Gulf.
You can think that, but I think that most of America thinks, you know, if President Trump had said we're going to call it the Gulf of the United States, I think Americans would have been like, yeah.
Yeah. Mexico's official name is the United States of Mexico. That's the official name of their country.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's the U.S. of M.
I'm glad that they don't tell people that because that's encroaching on our...
our IP, our national IP. So I'm open to this. I'm going to frame it as we've done it for the continent. That way people will lay off. If we keep saying it's our Gulf now, it belongs to the United States of America. Like, we're all Americans here. The Mexicans are Americans. The South Americans are all Americans. You know,
No.
South America.
They act
Chileans are
like it.
Americans.
They keep coming into our country like they own it. So.
I disagree with you, and the point that Josh makes is exactly why I disagree with you.
Which point?
That we're not all Americans because South America and North America, and the reason I disagree with that is because when people think of America, the United States, like that, when they think that it's just, you know, two Americas, it's everybody in America is allowed to go to America, then you get a rationalization that says, we can just travel to the United States and get in for no reason because we just want to be there because we're all the same.
Yeah, that's like Germans are European, but you don't have a right to go illegally immigrate to Germany from France. Like, you need to go through the proper channels. It was a little egotistical of us in the United States or somebody to call ourselves, we are the United States of America, and those other people in North America can call themselves something else. We're the ones of America.
We started calling ourselves the United States of America like before there was any other country. Like, Mexico wasn't a country at the time, and Canada wasn't a country at the time either. They were all, you know, they were colonies. There was still back when Mexico was a colony of Spain and Canada was a colony of Britain. There was an offer to Canada to join the United States. So the United States of America, we united against the British because we were the colonies of America, and then we were like, we're the United States of America. So we were the United States before anyone else.
That's a good point.
So
yeah, not only that, if anybody recognized somewhere else as America, we'd know about it, but they don't.
Yep.
Like,
like in Chile?
Well, like, if you say America anywhere in the world, what do people think you're talking about?
United States of America.
Well, there you go. So that's what we are.
But it's not accurate. Like,
it doesn't
Chileans
matter.
are Americans too.
You know, might makes right sometimes.
You got just be literal with it. Like, French people are Europeans. It's not an insult.
But there's no
so are Italians.
There's no place where they think of themselves as Europeans. They think of themselves as French or German or Polish or whatever. They're all like, there's like the United States is the only place where we call ourselves Americans. Like, it's not like people in Europe call themselves European. They call themselves whatever their respective country is. They're Italians or French.
And they're allowed to do that, but if we're proud to be an American, we're just a nationalistic Nazi.
I mean, I don't think. Well, I know you're being facetious. I don't think there's any. I don't think that being a nationalist means you're a Nazi at all. I think that's a leftist meme.
I just think it's interesting that everyone else should be proud of where they live and of their country, but if we are proud of it, the left seems to have a problem with it.
Well, the left has a problem all the time. So, hey, you guys want to go to Super Chats?
Oh, every day, dude.
Yep.
Every day. We're going to go to Super Chats. So smash the like button, share the show with your friends, go to timcast.com, join up, and you'll be able to join us for the after show. But right now, we're going to go to some Super Chats, and we're going to start with the Emperor's Champion says it's all fun and games for the cartels until the A10 shows up and goes, Barrr! And it's a big long one, so that's why
Can you explain what the A10 is exactly?
A10 is a flying tank. It's an airplane built around a gun, and the Burt is the sound the gun makes.
Wow.
Because it's I think it's like something like 4,000 rounds.
This is
per
the
minute.
Thunderbolt 2, the
Yeah.
A-10, the Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt 2.
It is
Single seat, twin turbofan, straight wing, subsonic attack aircraft.
yeah.
I feel like the pilot's going to feel the kickback on that one.
Well, the main gun slows the plane down.
Wow.
No joke. Like
That
when
is
he lets-
insane.
Oh, this is the Warthog. Okay.
Yeah, the Warthog. When they let go of the a burst from the main gun, it actually slows the forward momentum of the plane down.
Whoa.
You said that's an A10, Phil?
A10 Thunderbolt 2, the Warthog. It's a tank killer.
Awesome.
Shooting depleted uranium rounds. I think it's a 30 or 40 millimeter cannon.
We should have been using this 5 years ago.
30 millimeter GAU, GAU,
Yeah.
8 Avenger
But
rotary autocannon.
it was literally like it was built around the gun. They built the gun, and then they're like, let's make this gun fly.
That's crazy.
So they were like,
That's
all right.
awesome.
1977 is when they built this thing.
Yeah, and ground troops love that thing because it's such an amazing air support fighter or attack plane.
How do you have so much military knowledge? Were you in the military?
I just watch a lot of stuff.
Man, your knowledge is
I just watch a lot of
crazy.
stuff on. It's just cool stuff, man.
History Channel or?
History, YouTube too.
Okay.
You know,
So it's an air support attack. Is it air to air? Do they use it in
not
air
really.
combat?
I mean, I believe that it can carry Hellfires, so it ostensibly could.
Yeah.
But it doesn't it wouldn't take on like jet fighters because they don't have the maneuverability and the speed that like actual like fighter jets have. So like if it had like Hellfires on it, it would probably use them to take out helicopters. But like I don't think that it could actually take out a fighter jet, like an actual jet designed for air-to-air combat, like an interceptor or something like that. So. Just Because I'm Free says H.R. 38 of the 119th Congress is in committee. It's for a national constitutional carry. Call your senators and representatives, folks. Let's legally carry everywhere. The Constitution says that you have the right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. The Constitution has the supremacy clause saying that everything that's in the Constitution takes supremacy over all of any state laws. And so that means that the Second Amendment takes precedent over any state prohibitions. The prohibitions are infringements, so call your representative and tell them to support H.R. 38, national constitutional carry, because it's your right, and the states have no right to infringe upon your right to carry a weapon to defend yourself. There you go. Joe Fiota says, Phil, it's my son Roman's 10th birthday this weekend, and he asks to listen to No Tomorrow every morning on the way to school. Can you wish him a happy birthday, please? Roman, happy birthday. You have absolutely impeccable taste in heavy metal. I am so happy to hear that you enjoy All That Remains music. I really appreciate you, man. So let's see, what do we got here? Jason Dixon says, Ian, saw you on the It's Based Gaming Jamcast the other day. P.S. No? What?
P.S. Don't say
P.S.
it.
Don't. Andrew is an a-hole.
Oh, Andrew Wilson. Well, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I love the guy. Yeah, we had a good time doing It's Based Game Jam. Every few months, we'll do a session where a bunch of developers will get together, build video games. We had 40 entries this month, and they go through a series of judges and people judging the games, and then they come to the finals where Andrew and I were both judges, and we judged the top 5 finalists. It was a lot of fun. It's It's Based Jam Gaming. If you want to check it out, highly recommend it. Super fun to be a part of it, and we'll be doing it again too. So keep your eyes on it. And I tweeted it out. If you want to link directly to the show, it's on my Twitter.
Isaiah S. says, asking for prayers for my daughter again. We've been in the ICU for 273 days. She was extubated for the first time 2 months ago and was reintubated today. It's been a long, scary day. More in the Discord, religion general. So yeah, if you are of the praying type, keep Isaiah S.'s daughter in your thoughts and prayers.
Isaiah,
We're rooting for
We're
you.
rooting for you.
Yeah, there's been a lot of I've had a lung infection for about 2 weeks. I don't know about you guys, if you've been feeling under the weather at all. I see a lot of people tweeting about it.
When I was flying here, I was just talking outside the studio. Everybody was wearing masks and everybody was coughing at the airport. And my brother was just sick, as was my nephew. So I think something's going around.
I wonder if it's stress. I wonder if people are feeling stress and their immune systems are.
They shouldn't. Donald Trump's president.
I'm really allergic to my cat, and I keep forgetting to take allergy pills. And then I'll be sneezing and I'll have trouble breathing and I'll be like, oh, right.
Yeah, I couldn't get enough water.
You can't get rid of your kid's cat. You just.
Oh, it's your kid's cat. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, she sleeps in my room.
You can't get rid of any cat.
Sounds like
ever.
your cat.
It's my dumb cat.
JRG Project says ICE should start playing the classic Pokemon theme at their HQ. Gotta catch 'em all. A wild cartel member appeared.
Hilarious.
CBP used raids. It's super effective. Or bring back the Iraqi regime card deck back in the aughts. This cannon should be fun. You are a malicious young man.
I forgot about the Iraqi cards. And
I
my dad had Osama bin Laden toilet paper that we used after 9/11. And I was a kid. I was like, I don't know, 13 years old. And I remember using it. So.
Well, he's dead, so.
Yeah.
When I was a kid.
Oh, I thought you meant my dad, because my dad died. My dad
I'm sorry,
died.
not your
I thought you were
dad.
talking about my dad. I was
Oh.
like, I mean, he wasn't that bogus for doing that. It was Osama bin
Kind
Laden.
of funny.
I didn't know your father had passed away.
He did, but it's fine. Rest in peace, Henry. I love you.
Henry.
That's a good name.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, he's a junior, and they just named a gun range after him in Danville,
Nice.
Illinois. So I'm from Champaign-Urbana, and they just named the gun range Henry John Seiter Jr. Gun range. It's like 100 to 200 yard
Nice.
rifle range. So they just named it after my father. So
I
that was
didn't
really
realize
That's
that they
cool.
had gun ranges in Illinois. I thought guns were all illegal.
So they had St. Joe, Illinois, which is just one town over, and then Danville was where my dad liked to go in the latter part of his life. So he'd go there like every other day, pretty much.
Nice.
Yep.
Let's see. Wyatt Kaldenberg says, Phil, I lived southeast of Tijuana during the cartel wars. There is little difference between the cartels and Mexican government. If Trump declares the cartels terrorist, doesn't that mean the Mexican government is too? Well, I don't know that if it means that the Mexican government is too, but the United States does have many levers of power at its disposal, and it is quite influential. And I do think that the United States could persuade the Mexican government to side with the United States as opposed to siding with the cartels if it really, really wanted to. So whether the government currently is, I do think that the United States could eventually, over time, clean up Mexico significantly. It might take more, I guess, U.S. involvement in Mexico's politics than the average American is thinking that we should, but I do think that it's possible. So let's see. Glory Farm Knox says, I posted in the Discord and wanted to post here too. Our farm is having a seed kit giveaway. Head over to our YouTube and fill out the form and select the kits you're interested in. Thanks, y'all, for the support. So that's Glory Farm. What is it? Glory Farm Knox. So, yeah, if you're interested in getting a kit, seed kit for growing, I assume it's growing vegetables. I don't know if they're heirloom vegetables or if they're, I assume that it's probably heirloom vegetables. It's not the Monsanto ones that don't reproduce.
That's just evil.
It is kind of evil. I agree. Yeah. But you can still find heirloom stuff out there. It's I mean, if you go and buy your regular seeds from, whatever whatever nursery that's around, you might end up with Monsanto zombie seeds. But if you do a little digging on the internet, I'm sure that you can find some seeds that are not Monsantoized.
That's so nuts that a company was so influential. They genetically modified seeds to grow vegetables that don't have seeds so that they have the control of the supply. It's
so cruel.
Devil.
And then people, like farmers, would take the free seeds and then grow them, and it would not be sustaining. They couldn't grow anymore. It's so cruel.
My grandpa actually worked for them, and he was part of a class action lawsuit against them for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't. It was something that he was poisoned.
Henry Sr.?
Yes, Senior. Exactly. He's still alive. 95. Turned 95 last Saturday. And he was exposed to some toxicity from working through Monsanto. So while I was a young kid, we'd always get letters from him talking about this class action lawsuit that was happening against them.
Wow.
All right. Let's see. Hal Gailey says capitalism only causes trouble when the state discounts rights to support corporate profiteering. True capitalism respects rights as it's built on them. Well, I do think that for the most part, that's generally right. There are times where I think that there might be some incentives that need to be adjusted. But generally, I do think that, property rights really do cover a lot of things, especially when you don't have the ability to influence legislators to infringe on other people's property rights in your favor. So
Libby made a good point earlier about the script when the companies were completely out of control. I mean, you could say out of control or in control, maybe is the way to look at it. Like at the end of the 1800s, and they would pay their employees in their own currency that they would create. So like think crypto these days, and you could only spend that currency at the company's store. They were like, it was like slave labor they had basically through capitalism.
So I do agree that at the time that was a problem. But I don't think that kind of problem is possible nowadays. Again, you mentioned cryptocurrency, the ability to purchase other forms of currency and to move around and leave and go to a different place and stuff. That's something that they didn't have, back in the late 1800s. And so
yeah, I guess
the conditions in the late 1800s, I think, were unique.
Because if a company offered you crypto, their company crypto, you could trade it on the blockchain.
Put it on the exchange, yeah.
Hopefully, ideally.
But I do think incentives run in both directions, and not only do corporations and owners need to be incentivized, but so do workers. And if their wages aren't keeping up with corporate profits, and corporate profits are up by a multiple of 1,000 and worker wages have stayed stagnant, they're not going to be incentivized to want to work or join the labor force. And I think we're kind of seeing that. So I do think it's important to not only incentivize business owners, but incentivize the workers through higher wages, or wages that at least keep up with inflation and maybe kind of track profits of a company, some kind of profit sharing thing that is still capitalistic, but the workers are incentivized. I think we could kind of work something out. And some companies have started sharing profits with the workers, and it seems to be working.
And again,
what's funny is the only reason that health insurance benefits became part of an employment package is because FDR froze wages and said you couldn't have any raises. So companies were trying to figure out how to incentivize workers. And so they were like, we'll give you health insurance benefits. And now that's how it got stuck to employment. So all the progressives complaining about how it stuck to employment, it's like, but it was you guys. You stuck it to employment.
It's literally FDR's fault that you can't afford to get, your teeth cleaned or to get your bones set or whatever. It's literally FDR's fault.
Yes.
It is because of the Democrats.
Isn't that
you're
wild?
welcome.
Everything's the Democrats' fault.
It generally is, yeah. Ben Hickson says, hey, Philcast, have you read The True Believer by Eric Hoffer? Apparently revolutions happen when things are getting better. Last episode was great. I have not read that, but I am interested now. So tweet that at me and I'll take a look. Dante's Inferno says, I am a legal Mexican citizen. That's literally how he spelled it. In the U.S., and I hate that because of those who refuse to respect the law of the U.S., my chances of naturalization may eventually be jeopardized. And that's a legitimate gripe. Like the people that are here that have come to the United States legally, that are trying to do the things the right way, the fact that they're getting pushed back and they have to wait and the other people jump the line and people that come here the right way are getting, end up with the, the problems and having to deal with that. That is absolutely terrible, and it's something that I wish that we could fix immediately.
Well, they've even done polls, and the majority of legal Mexican immigrants and Mexican Americans want us to deport the migrants.
Yeah.
The majority of them voted for Trump for that exact reason. And of course, the Democrats want to discount them and would never put them on TV or in a news article. But the majority of legal Mexican Americans want us to deport illegal migrants. So that kind of speaks volumes.
Yeah, I do think that, it would be beneficial to America if you got the people that want to be here and that would go about it the right way. Yeah. If you got them into the U.S. first, and hopefully the deportations continue. Let's see.
Dr. Phil, we need you in Chicago. Stay there a couple weeks,
Dr.
buddy.
Phil and Tom Holm kicking indoors. Kenneth Hart says, my wife immigrated from Philippines last year. She heard Filipinos were making a hasty retreat back home. When asked how she felt about countrymen overstays, she shrugged, commenting, back of the line is over there, people. Good for her.
Love it.
Good for her. The more you have people coming here legally, and pushing the illegals out, the better I like it. Let's see here. Super chats. Invader J says, Freedom Tunes needs to make a tune of JD prank calling Margaret with the name Willard McBain. It's me again, Margaret. I think that would be great. Seamus, if you're watching, that would be an absolutely wonderful episode. And you could, toss Margaret into the crystals at the end too.
Are you there, JD? It's me, Margaret.
Into the crystal. Nunya B says, haven't watched mainstream sports really since 2020. Instead, watched the DW and Timcast mostly. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you. Hopefully you're a member at timcast.com. Hopefully you smash the like button and share the show with your friends as well. Let's see here. Jason Hutchinson says, production creates wealth, production of things to buy that people want to buy because it makes life more efficient, makes the dollar more valuable. Yeah, things like it's the supply side economics argument. The idea that the pie is not a finite pie, the pie can be grown, that it's not a zero-sum game, that it's better to create things, and in that creation, sometimes you'll destroy other industries, but that's better overall for everybody.
Generally.
Well, and a lot of people complain that, capitalism can't fix these great inequalities in wealth. Well, neither can socialism.
Nope.
So I want to see where socialism has a panacea for poverty and inequalities in wealth. So just because capitalism can't fix it perfectly, you need to show me a system that can do it better.
Yeah. Criticisms of capitalism are always they're always comparing capitalism to a perfect society that has never existed and that actually can't exist because we are limited humans in the real world. Like the idea that, capitalism did this and that, especially one of the memes that you see a lot is, all the deaths under capitalism, which was in response to the deaths under socialism, because socialists have been killed by their own governments, by famines created by the actions of their own governments, the top-down decrees of their own governments. And so in response, communists say things like, a bajillion gorillion people have been killed because there's not clean water, and a gorillion people have been killed by curable diseases, and blah, blah, blah. And it ends up being what they're saying is, capitalism hasn't solved all of the problems of the human condition. So, there is starvation that still happens, even though capitalism has just about solved abject poverty, right? I think that
fossil fuels helped with that.
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. But the idea that we're almost to the point where nobody lives by what the UN considers abject poverty anymore. Everyone on Earth, I think it's like less than 10% of the Earth's population is actually that poor nowadays. And it's all because of markets. It's because of markets and because of trade and because of being able to, fertilize crops with petroleum-based fertilizers and stuff, petrochemicals and stuff. So even though, capitalism isn't perfect and doesn't solve the fact that human existence means you're going to suffer, but it doesn't. It's like the communists don't have the solution either.
I wanted to add a little nuance to the super chatter who said production. I believe what he said was increasing production increases wealth. That it was a direct correlation, but you need to run an opportunity cost of production. So if you build a factory that builds paper clips or whatever, if the cost and destruction of your surroundings in order to create that factory outweighs the value of the factory itself, then the production actually reduced wealth. So like, at what cost? Always ask yourself that when you're dealing with how you're producing things. At what cost? It's called opportunity cost in microeconomics.
That's a good point, man. I like that.
Deadeye says, Phil, roundabouts are un-American. Still love you, though. No, they are not un-American. I have been a roundabout fan as long as I've been driving cars, and that's longer than I want to admit because I am an old man.
What's your favorite thing about the roundabout?
The fact that there's no stop sign. The fact
there's
that
a yield. There's a yield everywhere.
Yield means that you can go ahead and ease your way in. You don't have to stop and sit there and
People
wait.
get confused by that yield sign in the roundabout, though.
People
they
get
never
confused by a lot of things. People get confused by push doors or pull doors.
Or who a man is and who a woman is. You never know.
They get confused about what a penis is for. So
yeah, you never know.
But no, I will stand by this. Roundabouts are a net good for society. And they're not even if they are, if they're not from America, they're still a great idea. They're better than four-way stops. K. Spencer Jones with more of the roundabout blasphemy. Roundabouts are communism. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Everybody working together for common good.
Take over the means of production.
It is communism.
Ian Kenny says roundabouts only suck for people who can't drive. Yes, my brother.
You sounded like Hulk Hogan there.
Let me tell you, brother.
I like them. Every once in a while, you come up on a roundabout that's hard to see. Have you ever experienced that? Like at night, it's dark, it's not lit very well, and it's like there's no sign, there's no stop sign. So
I was recently going around a roundabout, and I saw it's been snowing a lot, right? And it was just tire tracks directly across the roundabout, and I was like, oh, someone missed there.
That kind of guy.
Yeah, just directly across. So you like the roundabout, but you'd rather just drive through it.
Well, I wouldn't want. I mean, it depends on what I'm driving. If I'm driving the Jeep, I'll just drive through it. It's fine. I've got plenty of clearance. If I'm driving the Tesla, it's low to the ground. I wouldn't just drive through it. Yeah. So, but the Jeep,
I don't know what anybody was driving.
No.
So I didn't see him. Just saw the tracks.
JT says roundabouts are superior.
Wow, a lot of roundabouts.
We're getting a lot of roundabouts.
Are you influencing the super chat choices tonight?
Look, man, Serge is actually selecting them for me. So
people bullish on roundabouts.
We're doing a lot of super chats tonight. So
roundabouts are glorious. I'm just gonna say, now the full stop. If you don't come to a complete stop, the cops can pull you over. Keep that in mind. I mean, a total and complete stop
at stop sign.
Yeah, that's rolling stop can
exactly.
Get you.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that.
And
in Chicago, it's okay though. In Chicago, it's always a rolling stop.
In Chicago, it's dangerous to actually stop, right? Yeah.
Half of them don't have driver's license because they snuck in anyways. So.
RD says Biden's last moves in office made it illegal to drill for oil in the Gulf of America. In the Gulf of Mexico. It's not illegal to drill in the Gulf of America. And I heard someone make this statement. It is possible that the change of name was to get around Biden's executive order.
Oh my God.
You don't think it designated a specific geographic area and that's what it's tied to?
I mean, look, I didn't read the executive order that Biden put out, but if they said the Gulf of Mexico, then technically
it doesn't
exist anymore. It's the Gulf of America. So, I mean, look, I mean, maybe I would love that for it to be that much of a pedantic issue, like just, oh, well, you thought that you were going to do this. We're just going to go ahead and change the name. If I understand correctly, and again, this is only, Wave Top's understanding. I didn't read into it or anything, but if I understand correctly, the executive order that Biden made regarding drilling in the Gulf of Mexico was comprehensive, and it would cause a lot of legal problems for the Trump administration to actually start drilling in the Gulf. So if it is true that that executive order was problematic for the administration and they just changed the name to get around it, that is probably, I mean, I want to believe.
It would make it make sense because I was like, why is that like Trump's top priority, renaming the Gulf of Mexico? But now it kind of makes sense.
Also, if they could develop a tool other than a drill to get in there and dig out the oil.
Space laser?
Yeah, like lasers. Then like we're not actually drilling. We're just cutting it open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true.
I'm looking at this, and it does have a map, the Biden executive order.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Attached to it. So it says...
We're thinking ahead.
Yeah, it says the areas designated by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management as the North Atlantic, Mid-Atlantic, the areas of the Outer Continental Shelf designated by Section 104A of the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act. The boundaries of the withdrawn areas are more specifically delineated in the attached map.
Dude, I remember that Deepwater Horizon spill, I guess you would call it, where like
in the Gulf of America.
The drill broke, and then for like months and months, maybe even years, it was just pouring.
I don't think it was years.
Oh, it was
a
gruesome.
while.
And there was a camera down there.
It. They couldn't figure out how to close it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Like, if I understand correctly,
Shrimping became a problem.
yeah, for like
The
on a
fishermen.
short term, but if I understand correctly, there were no long-term negative results. Like, it was a problem while the oil was, dumping out of there. But once they capped it, like, there are microbes that actually eat the petroleum.
That's interesting.
And they're if I understand correctly, the Gulf is not like some dead zone that is no longer, life doesn't exist anymore. If I understand correctly, I'd have to take a look to make sure.
They figured out how to put iron oxide dust into oil spills, and then you use a magnet to pull the oil out. All the oil, it bonds with the iron, and then it'll come up on your magnet.
Wow, that's
there's videos of it in action.
Super arcane knowledge. You guys impress me with the esoteric knowledge you come up with.
The internet's a portal.
It's like, wow, I didn't know you could do that with that
It's
stuff.
a palantir.
I didn't know there was bacteria that eats oil.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I bet that's not true of lithium batteries. There's probably not bacteria that eats lithium batteries.
Things evolve.
The last thing you want to do is put lithium in contact with salt water.
Well, for sure, but stuff gets dumped.
There's also fungus that eats petroleum, or plastic rather.
What about that eats the what do you call them? The wind turbines. Once those fall apart, you can't recycle them.
No, those things are such a terrible idea.
Terrible idea.
Dustin Campbell says, Ian, if you did make it snow in the Gulf, I thank you, sir. And that's going to wrap it up for us. Smash the like button. Share the show with your friends. Go to timcast.com and join up. And Josh, do you have any last words, or where can people find you?
Man, well, thanks for having me. I had a blast. They can find me on Instagram at Josh Seiter Official and on Twitter at Josh Seiter.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons. You can email me tips or tricks at liberty@thepm.news. And you can check out everything we're doing at thepostmillennial.com.
Yeah, we're not done yet. We're going over to timcast.com to do the after show. So sign up if you're not already a member, but come over to timcast.com. Let's hang out. We'll be taking phone calls. As far as I know, Discord's working again. Did everything?
If I understand correctly, it
gorgeous.
is.
Well, we'll see you there. I'm Ian Crossland. Follow me at Ian Crossland all across the internet, particularly on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. Check out my latest video about our current experience within this golden age and what it means to be here. It's really awesome. See you later.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. This week is a big week for me because my band All That Remains is going to release our 10th record on Friday. The record is called Anti-Fragile. You can go check out some of the singles. Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow, and Divine. They're available on YouTube, on Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Don't forget The Left Lane is Crime. Stick around or come back for the after show shortly, and we'll see you later.